Way to go. Okay. From Angola, we move south of Angola and we go to the country of Nelson Mandela, South Africa. And in the next article, it reads from the Financial Times and reads Cyril Ramaphosa vows to turn the country into a construction site. Now, spare me. Presence of pro-market Democratic Alliance in President coalition is fueling business optimism. Wow. South Africa's in the lead. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered a strong pro-business message in his first State of the Nation address as head of a coalition government, singling out the country's economic revival as the main priority of his final 5-year term. Ramaphosa pledged to re-industrialize South Africa after a decade of GDP growth of less than 1%. He pledged to cut the red tape that prevented skilled foreigners from getting work visas, overhaul dysfunctional municipalities, and massively increase the scale of investment in infrastructure. A new role under the DA's Dean McPherson, the new Minister of Public Works. The echoes of what McPherson told the Parliament the day before, in which he revealed plans to attract 10 billion rand, about 57 million US dollars in private sector investment to build new energy, communications, water, and transport infrastructure. Now, contrast this with what Ramaphosa would then say. Where is it? There's a part there where, okay, it's at the top, where he is saying he intends to, let me see. Yeah. Okay, so Ramaphosa is saying, we have a clear intention to turn our country into a construction site. Ramaphosa said, we want to see yellow equipment throughout the country and cranes with roads being built, as well as dams, bridges, houses, schools, and hospitals. On the other hand, Mr. McPherson is saying the private sector investment is to build new energy, communications, water, and transport infrastructure. Who are we supposed to believe here?
Okay, well, both of them are basically speaking the same language. So there's not much contradiction there. They're talking about, investment and they're just elaborating different sectors of the infrastructural system. And obviously, I have my reservations in terms of what was mentioned even earlier. And number one, first of all, before I even go into the what they're talking in terms of the economic model or policies that they're going to pursue.
Yep.
Which publication is this?
This is Financial Times.
Financial Times. Okay, so the Financial Times and the Economist and the New York Times have been, of course, playing the race card in a very clever way. Whenever they say okay, so this one they got much more explicit. Before they formed the coalition,
yeah,
it was the pro-business, Democratic Alliance, right?
Okay.
That's the party, the DA. So now, Financial Times is telling us that there's optimism, right? Because of the presence of the pro-business Democratic Alliance. In plain English, for
they don't trust you.
Listeners who are not yet up to par in terms of translating what these, Western European media mean when they say what they say. Let me translate it to them. The presence of the pro-business Democratic Alliance in the government is generating hope. They're saying the presence of Europeans in the government of Cyril Ramaphosa. They're saying that if these things were just being said by Africans and you had African ministers, then there would be no ground for optimism. But now, you can be a little more hopeful because now we have European South Africans involved in government. And that's what they mean when they say, well, of course, they can't say it. They can't say, now that, there are actually 6 ministries reserved for this white party, the prospects are much more better now. So we have some hope, you see. All right, so I wanted to get that off the ground very quickly. And then let's go to the other part. As sisters and brothers know, there has been many eruptions of xenophobic display in South Africa, where African sisters and brothers from other parts of the continent have been attacked. They've been accused of taking jobs from South Africans and contributing to their impoverishment. Of course, they're directing their anger at fellow people who are also picking the crumbs that drop off the table. They're not directing their anger at those that monopolize wealth in South Africa, which of course include the European elite, as well as the new African elite, of which Cyril Ramaphosa himself is a key member of that, new black bourgeoisie. So what do they say? They know that you can't be saying, South Africa should open up its doors.
Its borders.
Its borders. So they qualify it. They say skilled foreigners, right? You're stopping skilled foreigners with your bureaucracy. No, we agree with you. Let these Africans stay in Nigeria, stay in Zambia, Zimbabwe. We don't need any more Africans here. But the skilled foreigners is another, of course, euphemism for European expatriates.
Yes.
You see? So if any listener was careless enough, reader, enough to pick that up, that is the second thing. And then, of course, in terms of if they're going to build the infrastructure, and they're already telling you that where the money is going to be coming from, it's going to be coming from outside, right? In what shape and form? Are you going to be increasing the debt burden for South Africans? And of course, the low-income folks who are going to be taxed, because everybody's taxed, at a certain level, right? Will have to repay this debt. And in terms of creating jobs, yes, initially there could be some upsurge, even though I wonder you don't have total confidence in a party whose leadership is essentially white in telling me that the European Minister of Public Works is going to be sort of egalitarian when people are being hired for these new jobs in the infrastructure and rebuilding in South Africa. So I wait to see that. Okay. But to me, at the end of the day, anything that South Africa does without addressing the issue of the land, I see it as temporary and superficial. And I don't think that Ramaphosa is going to finish his 5-year term.
Wow. That's quite an indictment. I mean, the reason that McPherson issue of him saying they intend to attract 10 billion rand and for private sector investments to build energy, communications, water, and transportation. But if you contrast that with the fact that the president is then saying the investment they're hoping to get is going to go into roads, dams, bridges, homes. One is talking public sector and the other one is saying you don't really know what you're talking about. We're talking about money-making schemes. So already, like you said, it's highly unlikely that he will finish his 5-year term if this kind of schism is already showing based on initial statements being made by both of them in the parliament.
Yeah, to me, the biggest issue is going to be the land issue. When it comes to how they deploy uh, investment funds or foreign aid funds or World Bank or IMF funds, that to me is a battle of the elite. But when it comes to actually giving people a part of the land,
Yeah.
that is going to be the challenge. That's where the line is really drawn in the sand. One party saying no, that we oppose that, and the other party was created, in fact, the African National Congress to address that issue. And that's
to
me, that's going to be the clash where
values.
Ramaphosa will come upon that wall. He won't be able to answer that question. I mean, right now, there's no focus on it because media are not focusing on it. Of course, as you recall, when because just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean we shouldn't bring it in the news, because if we don't, nobody else will.
Yep.
When Mugabe and Zimbabwe was being demonized during the land seizure, when they were taking the land from Europeans and giving it back to Africans, and they were talking about the violence that was involved in that. In fact, statistically speaking, I think the violence against European farmers in South Africa was probably 5 or 10 times higher than what was going on in Zimbabwe. But that was not covered because they didn't want to say, wait a minute, this issue is not confined to Zimbabwe alone. This issue is in South Africa. This issue is in Namibia. Issues in Kenya, where
Zambia.
the European elite still monopolized the land.
Zambia,
and that, of course, would have diluted the intensity of the vitriol and focus on that this is exclusively a Mugabe-created problem, you see? So now they're talking about all these infrastructure building and so on and so forth, just in order to avoid addressing the elephant in the room, which is the land. And the article, I think at one point, is talking about the dire economic conditions in South Africa.
Yep.
It's talking about unemployment at 32%. And once again, deceiving readers who are not familiar with the facts. It's 32%, but it's not, the pain is not shared equally. If you look at only the Black African population, it's more like 40% unemployment. The Europeans, who make up 7.2% of the population, their unemployment level is only 7.4%. So why would you not mention that fact? You lies by omission, see? Leaving the false impression that all South Africans are suffering equally.
And to put a final point to it, it will be a question of when does the country actually have a say about what needs to be done? Because yes, elections have been held.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. And that is a problem in much of Africa. That's why I keep maintaining that these countries have artificial independence on paper alone. So you see, the Financial Times, The Economist, all of them are speaking on behalf of Cyril Ramaphosa. In this case, after he said something, they said he's echoing something which had already been said earlier by the European minister